Hello and welcome to the First Brick Property Podcast, Milestone episode 10.
Woo!
You may or may not have noticed that KM didn't open the show today. It was a bit of a subpar introduction, and that's because KM's regular bearded co-host opened the show today. And here I have with me KM from First Brick Property. How are you today?
I'm good. Yourself? That was a wonderful opening.
Subpar.
I'm not sure if you're taking the mickey out of my hello. The way I do things, we're gonna have to change things up from next week. But yeah, not too bad. Just in isolation. Yourself?
Yeah. How are you coping with that?
Back's starting to get a bit tired and hurt. Been at the physio all day today.
Oh, really?
Yeah, trying to fix that up. But, giving us time to work on other aspects of the business and continue to build our relationships with our property managers, our real estate agents and brokers and whatnot. So
that's
we're
good to
doing
hear.
all right. How's your life going?
Pretty good.
How's the kids?
Everyone's well.
Yeah.
The big exciting announcement today was a documentary that's coming out in about 3 weeks on Michael Jordan, The Last Dance.
Nice.
So I'm pretty excited about that.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
If anyone wants to send Henny a gift, just make it Michael Jordan related. He'll appreciate it.
100%.
That's cool. Like you mentioned, we have reached the milestone episode 10.
Yep.
That is a milestone for us. When we started, we were like, we won't get past proper episode 1. Actually, episode 1, you didn't even join me, I remember.
Are we still talking about that?
Yeah, we're still talking about that. So, milestone episode, Henny opened. You would have also heard right at the start, we've got a new intro music to the podcast.
Yeah.
So we had some people say, change it up. They don't want to hear some auctioneer yelling.
Yeah, I've only been saying that for about 10 episodes.
Yeah. So we've got someone to professionally make some music and change it up. So all things happening on the First Brick Property Podcast. So today, I guess being a milestone episode, it's all about the people. And as such, we have a Q&A episode lined up for our listeners. So big thank you to everyone who sent in questions. We will try and get through as many as possible. If your question wasn't answered today, it's on the list, and we'll get to hopefully on the next Q&A episode. Should we just dive straight into it?
Yeah.
All right. Do you want to hit us up with the first question?
So our first question comes from Mark G. Does the cooling off period apply to vendors?
It's a good question, Mark. Simply no, it does not. We'll start real quickly at the top for anyone's unsure what a cooling off period is.
Yeah.
When you've agreed on a contract, on a purchase price, the buyer and the seller exchange contracts, and then you go into what is called the cooling off period.
Yep.
And the cooling off period is literally gives you some time to cool off. So sometimes you buy a property, you get a bit emotional about it, you're heated, you're keen to buy it, you put the offer in, and then 3 hours later you're like, that was a mistake.
Yeah.
Shouldn't have bought that one. Something else comes up, whatever.
Yeah.
Standard cooling off period in most states and territories is 5 days, business days. So that can be negotiated as well.
Yeah.
And essentially what happens is, within that cooling off period, if you decide you don't want to buy the house anymore, you just say, I don't want to buy a house anymore. You tell your solicitor and you pull out. And there's no penalties really. You might lose your 0.25% deposit, which is usually $1,000, $2,000, something like that.
Yeah.
But that's it. So it gives you that chance to drop out for whatever reason if you need to.
The important thing is to keep in mind though, with the cooling off period, is that it works a little bit differently for auctions.
Correct.
So in most cases, I believe, with an auction, you don't get the cooling off period. So once you've become the highest bidder and you've won the property, you owe the 10% immediately.
Yes.
Yeah.
So auction conditions is different. Good point, Henny. So as soon as you buy it, you can't cool off. You better be ready to go. So good question. But in terms of the sellers, no cooling off period.
Yeah.
Actually, for the sellers, you have 24 hours. The only time you can really pull out without any fees as a seller, you have 24 hours from when you signed your sales agency agreement with the actual real estate agent.
Yeah.
That's to pull out of trying to sell your property at all. Once that's gone, you're kind of going to sell your property pretty much. Question 2 is from Simon. It's a question we've been getting quite a few times this few weeks. is it smart to buy in these unprecedented times as we are in uncharted waters? It's a very descriptive question, Simon. Listen to the last 2 episodes of the podcast, pretty much. No, but what do you reckon, Henny?
Yeah, definitely. We are definitely in uncharted waters.
Yeah.
But this question comes up a lot at different points in time, and not just about the what's going on at this point in time when you come to buy a property, but generally, when is a good time to buy a property? And the answer is always, it's based on your own circumstance. Are you ready to buy a property or are you not? So obviously you need to take into account the current economy and the property market and things that are happening now. But at the end of the day, if you're ready to buy a property, that's the main thing that you should be looking at. Consider what your options are based on the current market. But if you're not ready to buy a property and you think, no, now's a good time to buy a property because, the economy might be dropping a little bit or house prices might be going up or down. If you're still not ready to buy a property, regardless of whether it's a good time or not, you're not ready to buy a property. So don't buy a property.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
I think what I always say, and what we, firmly believe in at First Brick is the best time to buy is when you're ready.
Yeah.
Exactly what you've been saying. Similar to what we've been talking on the last 2 episodes, the last 2 Corona casts, essentially the fundamentals of property remain the same.
Yeah.
Always. They don't really change. And you don't buy property to make money in the next 3 months, 6 months, 12 months if you're looking at just buy and hold.
Yeah.
Obviously, if you're looking to buy and renovate, timing is more important, or if you're doing development, that's all different. But if you're looking to just buy and hold, it's a long-term investment.
Yeah.
So what's happening now, what's happened in the last 3 months or 3 weeks, 3 days is completely irrelevant.
Yeah.
I was looking at the news today, foolishly, because I don't usually watch the news in the media. But they were mentioning house prices correcting and words were thrown around. I'm not going to use certain words, but they were throwing around some words, and it happens every single time there's an event.
Yeah, of course.
9/11, GFC, the Great Depression. You can go back to as far back as you want. Whenever there's an event, Australians love to talk property. And it's always in the media. It's always in the news. Are we booming? Are we crashing? It's never. Is the market just stable? So don't listen to that stuff. And if you, like you said, Henny, if you're ready, Simon, to purchase for the long term, it's kind of irrelevant. As long as you've got a stable job, stable income, and you've got buffer zones, just in case something happens, go for it.
And the last thing I'd like to add to that is you can still buy the right or the wrong property. Assuming there is a correct time to buy, which we don't think there is. It just depends on your circumstance. But let's say this was the perfect time to buy because of COVID. You can still buy the wrong property.
Correct.
So you still need to engage someone like First Brick Buyers Agency.
Thanks for the plug.
to find a good property. So that's another important thing. You need to be ready and you still need to buy the right property. You can't just buy any old property just because someone said, oh, now's a good time to buy. Yeah,
for sure. Our next question comes from you, but that's a bit of a deeper, meaningful question, so we might leave that for another episode. Next question comes from Bailey Hodge. Thanks for sending your question in, Bailey. I have been listening to your podcast and they've been really helpful. I'm looking to buy my first property this year. I was wondering if you could provide more information about buying a property and then renting out a room to help pay for mortgage. I will live in the property for a while, but I would want someone else to help pay for it. I want to get a loan as a homeowner, but if I rent out the room, will that classify me as an investor and or impact my tax? Any information on this would be greatly appreciated. It's a great question. Firstly, thanks for sending that in, and secondly, congratulations on looking to buy your first property.
Yep.
We'll pass this question off to Taxman Hanny.
Yep.
Can you shed some light to Bailey?
That is a great question, and there is a few things to it. So if you do rent out that one room, any rent that you receive will generally be regarded as assessable income by the ATO. So you will have to declare that money that you receive as rental income. That does, however, mean you are able to claim a portion of your expenses for the property relative to the rental income that you receive. So let's say the room that you rent out makes up about 30% of the property, then you can claim 30% of your expenses, your interest, deductions on your mortgage repayments, any repairs and maintenance, strata, if there's any council rates, water rates, all of that, you'll be able to claim a portion of it. You'd also be able to get a depreciation report and claim 30% of the depreciation expenses as well. More importantly, however, if you do this, you have to keep in mind that even though this is your owner-occupied property, and generally when you sell this kind of property, you don't have to pay capital gains tax because of the main residence exemption. In this situation, however, you will most likely pay capital gains tax on the portion of the property that you rented out. So you would still need to do a CGT calculation at the time of sale. And if it's, let's say it's that 30% example, you'll be liable for 30% CGT on that property. Having said all this, however, going back to the first part of your question, it might be able to help you getting a loan with regards to your serviceability. If you do rent out a room, you may be able to claim additional rental income as part of your income to help with your serviceability, but you'd probably need to speak to a mortgage broker or the banks about that, just to see what your options are and how you can use that to your advantage. So there is a bit to it. Definitely do maybe a cost benefit analysis and some forecast, potential tax bill or potential CGT, and just work out whether or not that's worth it for you. And definitely, like we always say, speak to your accountant or your financial advisor, so they can assist you with that.
Just general advice. Here, I'll add to that as well with regards to the actual loan, because if you're just buying it as a place to live to start with, your loan will be obviously an owner-occupier loan, and this being your first property, you'll have benefits such as the first-time buyer's grant, the stamp duty exemption. You might be able to get the assistance scheme, the 5% deposit, and then that may change the way your loan is structured. But once you start renting out a room, like Kenny said, your income has to be reported and whatnot. But that you have to speak to the broker to find out exactly which loan is best suitable for you. But if you're struggling with that, feel free to contact us. You know where to find us. We can put you in contact with great brokers and a great financial advisor who can do all the financial modeling and whatnot for you.
100%.
And then we can help you find the property. So, Bailey, if you're listening, for sending a great question, if you want any help, give us a ring and we'll give you a special Q&A milestone episode discount just for sending in a great episode. So that's what happens when you send in a good question. So next question.
The next question we've received is from Daniel. And he said, I understand that property is a solid investment to make money, but what is the end goal? When do you stop buying? What are you really trying to achieve?
It's a deep question, Daniel.
Pretty deep.
Yeah. I guess what's the end goal? What's your end goal? That's the answer to your question. So a lot of people, it's actually a really good question, because a lot of people do purchase property and then buy the next one and buy the next one and buy the next one, and they keep buying and they think, well, when do I stop and where am I going with this? So we always say start with the end in mind. Have your end goal at the forefront of your strategy, and that's really important as well, to have your end goal already known so that you can develop your strategy. Because depending on your goal, you might be looking at yield properties or growth properties or a mixture of both. So it's important to know what your goal is. If your goal is to live off rent, you need to work out how much rent you need to live. So a lot of people like to have a goal of 100,000 a year passive income from rent, or 50,000, whatever that number is. If it's 100,000, let's say that you're looking at about $2.5 million in assets, in property, paid off property at 5% yield plus holding costs, maintenance, whatnot. You're going to get about 100 grand a year. So that's how you kind of work out what you're trying to achieve through property, how to get there. So you need to know what your end goal is first. If your end goal is to, buy a bunch of property, see the value of them all increase, sell them all, pay your CGT, and have a huge lump sum amount in your bank, and then travel the world and live your life off it, that's cool. You just need to know what your end goal is. So definitely correct that property is a solid investment. And you're definitely on the, asking the right questions by saying, when do you stop buying and what are we trying to achieve? But that really comes down to what you want out of property.
And keep in mind as well that, while you're on this journey of property acquisitions, your end goal might change. Yeah. You might decide that you've purchased enough property and you've got a big enough portfolio, and maybe you'd like to try your hand at developing something. So that might end up being your goal. You might want to keep purchasing more property until you find something that you can develop, for instance. So definitely everything that KM said is correct. You need to start with the end goal in mind. Keep in mind that your end goal may change and you may end up working towards something that's a little bit different.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
So again, Daniel, if you are listening to this and you just heard us answer your question, you're thinking, I'm not really sure where to go with this, contact us and we're happy to give you a hand. And for sending a great question, we'll also give you the same discount that Bailey's going to get when she calls us. And time for one more, you reckon?
Yeah, one more. And I'm just having a look at this question. You're going to have to offer an even bigger discount for this one, because this is a cracker of a question.
Yep.
And I'm going to ask it so you can answer it. And this one's coming from Sammy.
Thank you, Sammy, for this great question.
Since we can't get landlord insurance now, how dangerous is it buying at the moment?
It's a very good question, Sammy. Just to put some context to this, anyone thinking, why can't we get landlord insurance at the moment?
Yeah.
Due to COVID-19, coronavirus, and due to some government stimulation and packages and whatnot, trying to help tenants.
Yep.
Because landlord insurance, more particularly the tenant side of it, where they help you make where they pay your rent if your tenant defaults, because they're getting kind of pumped at the moment with a lot of requests for this, because the government has just said you can't really kick out your tenant if they're not paying for a period of time.
Yeah.
They have currently stopped allowing any new applications for landlord insurance.
Yeah. So to add further context to that, if you had landlord insurance and your tenant couldn't pay the rent, for instance, basically what you would do is you would evict them, and then you'd be able to claim for any rental loss through your landlord insurance. And obviously now the insurers are a little worried, because you can be in a situation where your tenant isn't paying rent, you can't kick them out, you can't get new tenants. And I think that embargo is on for about 6 months, I believe.
6 months.
And that's probably enough to send some of these insurers broke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for that's why Sammy is messaging us saying, what do I do, or how dangerous is it since we can't get landlord insurance? Just if anyone's curious, building and contents insurance is unaffected. You can still go get that.
Yep.
How dangerous is it? So I did a lot of calling around today and digging to try and find an answer to this. I do believe some insurance companies, EBM and a couple others, are still accepting new applicants, but they have to go through your property manager. So if I call them personally, they are not accepting any more policies.
Yeah.
But if I call my property manager, that I'm going to get to take over my property, and I get him to call them, they will accept them. Not all companies, but there are some. So you're going to have to get you're going to have to call your property manager and get him to give people a ring and see which one's going to accept you. The other thing that I've found is if you go through an insurance broker, they have preference, and the insurance companies are still allowing people that go through an insurance broker to get these policies.
Okay.
So I think the reason that these insurance companies are doing that to make sure, firstly, there's no fraudulent activity happening and no one's really taking advantage of this situation. So you're going through a third party to get to them. Is making it really like transparent. But to answer the next part of your question, how dangerous is it buying at the moment? Look, even with your landlord insurance, you might not get any assistance, right? We know how insurance works. And this is a call to any insurance company listening. If you want to jump on the podcast and do an interview with us, we'll happily take you on board. Sometimes it's hard to get insurance payments, even if it's valid. So how dangerous is it? I would say, obviously, you want to have it in place, especially if you're an investor. But if you've just purchased and you're just looking to get it, your property manager should be really finding you a tenant that has a secure income, secure job. And right now, you're probably in a position where your property manager will be able to, I guess, sift through all the applicants to really find the one that will definitely be able to pay you. And maybe might offer a discount for the next few months or whatever to get the really good tenants in your property. And that's just to try and lower the risk of, I guess, tenant default. The other side to it is if you don't have a tenant in there and you wait 6 months to try and, until the embargo goes, then you buy insurance, then you get a tenant, you've received zero rent anyway. It's not an ideal situation at all. But as Simon mentioned earlier, these are uncharted waters, uncertain times, and kind of have to work a little bit around it. So get yourself a really good property manager, I would say. And you're in a position where you can get a really good tenant. I mean, it might be unlikely that you get a new tenant with all the history and they know that they're a solid income, solid job. And then 1 week later, they say, I'm not paying anymore. You never know, though. But if you can get a solid tenant and then they are doing a bit of, saying they can't pay rent for a period of time, I guess it's essentially the same if you were waiting anyway. So, but at least this way you have a tenant ready to go after. It's not ideal. But I think that's it. But first, speak to your property manager or go through an insurance broker to try and get insurance.
So it's not an impossible situation. You just need to do some work.
There's a bit of work around it. Rather than just jumping on Google and doing a quick quote and signing up in 2 seconds. Anything to add to that one? Or
I think that's it.
Pretty good answer, I reckon. Sammy, if you need help with that, we're happy to help. Connect you with the right people as well. So feel free to give us a buzz. And like Hanny said, we'll give you a episode 10 discount. For
Cracker discount.
Send you a question. Cracker discount. Cool. That's a wrap for our Milestone episode 10, first Q&A episode ever. Hope your questions got answered. If they didn't get answered, we'll get them on the next Q&A episode. Hope you guys enjoyed it at home. Thank you, Henny, as always.
Thanks for letting me do the introduction.
Anytime. We'll put up a poll on our socials if people want Henny to do the intros or myself, and we'll put up the results. We'll see how we go. Thank you for listening, everyone. You can find a lot of our content on our socials: Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, TikTok, etc. Just search First Brick Property. If you have any questions you would like discussed, such as what we did today, on a Q&A episode, please send us a message to hello@firstbrick.com.au or shoot us a message on our social platforms. If you enjoyed the episode, we'd love a review. This helps us get up higher in the charts and allows more people to find us and listen and learn. So please send us those 5-star reviews and pass the pod. Let one person know that you think would benefit from our podcast and let them listen to it and let them keep passing it on. So pass the pod movement. Buying property is our passion. Helping you do it is our mission. Thanks, guys. See ya.